Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, the PGA Tour season rolls on, and we are headed back to the States this week to Minnesota for the 3M Open. And here we are going to tell you everything you need to know about the 2025 3M Open in 30 minutes or less. We're going to break down the host course itself, TPC Twin Cities, take a look at all the key stats and data that you need to know this week, and then we're going to take a look at the board and see if we can identify some plays and some picks for DFS, betting, and one and done. And like I said, we're going to do it all in 30 minutes or less. An efficient, comprehensive preview, the only thing you'll need to watch this week for the 3M Open. Now, I will say before we continue, PGA Tour season's coming to an end, but we're going to have coverage for the rest of the PGA Tour season, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel. That way you can be with us through the rest of the PGA Tour regular season as well as the FedEx Cup playoffs. And also, we are about a month out from college football starting. We're going to have some preseason content. We're already doing best ball drafts, and then once the regular season starts, we're going to be coming at you almost every night with DFS coverage for college football. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you are interested in that. All right, now, before we get started with talking about the 3M Open, though, we had a major championship last week. We had the Open. So we're going to do a quick little kind of debrief and recap of the Open. If you are just here for the 3M preview, take a look at the time codes and skip ahead to where you need to skip ahead to. But like I said, every time it's a major, I want to talk about a major because majors are kind of what the golf world revolves around. Not to kind of Brooks Koepka it, but majors are significant. So anyway, Scottie Scheffler won the Open Championship in a runaway. It made Sunday just totally boring. I was actually driving home from the beach on Sunday afternoon, and being totally honest, I didn't really watch a second of Scottie's round. My wife was in the passenger seat, keeping me updated. Oh, Scottie's up 5 now. Scottie's up 7 now. It was just totally not suspenseful. Just not really close because he was just so much better than the rest of the competition. And I think it's time to start putting Scottie Scheffler in some all-time great legacy conversations, right? I think now that he has 4 major championships in his belt, 3 different majors, I might add, I think that definitely puts him in for certain the top 15 in terms of the greatest golfers of all time. And I think one more major would put him easily in the top 10 with the likes of the Rory McIlroys and the Phil Mickelsons of the world. They're probably fringe top 10 golfers of all time. And I think that probably being at 4 and with it being 3 different majors, I think he's probably about on par with Brooks Koepka in terms of all-time greatness. Scottie's already won more on tour than Brooks Koepka did. Obviously, Koepka now on live, which makes that a little bit more difficult. But Koepka was not the week in, week out PGA Tour player that Scottie is. So Scottie is trending towards being an all-time great, right? Especially if he does this for another decade. You got to feel he's won 4 of the last 16 majors. If he keeps that pace up, he's going to win 10 of the next 40, and that would put him at 14, which is crazy to think about, right? He absolutely could get there. But the craziest thing about Scottie's greatness is he's so great, but he doesn't really evoke a whole lot of emotion. He kind of wins boring. I was watching the Saturday round with my father-in-law as he was playing on Saturday while we were on vacation. And I was just telling him, I'm look, Scottie's this is over. Scottie's up 2 by the end of the day. He's going to be up 4. This is going to be non-interesting because Scottie just has a way of just kind of taking a stranglehold on a tournament because he just simply doesn't bogey holes, right? He just doesn't put himself in a position to lose golf tournaments. It's just, I've never really seen anything like it. And, because of the fact that he wins boring, I think if you were to make a cross-sport comparison, I think he's very much like a Peyton Manning in football or a Tim Duncan in the NBA, where just the greatness is so obviously there, but he doesn't really have a whole lot of haters, doesn't really have a group of stands out there, just kind of just does his winning and goes about his business, not super marketable outside of his own sport, but what we're watching is all-time greatness. And I will also add this as well. If you were to ask me today, thinking about the NFL, right, who is the greatest quarterback of all time? The answer is Tom Brady. If you were to ask me who the best to ever play the position is, though, I would tell you that it was Patrick Mahomes from about 2018 to 2020. And I think right now, Scottie Scheffler is kind of in that same boat where, if you were to ask me who the greatest golfer of all time is, it's Tiger and Jack. But if you were to ask me who the best golfer of all time is, it's Tiger and Jack and Scottie. I think he's every bit up there with what he's doing right now. Just his skill level in the game of golf is just absolutely absurd. And we just need to enjoy greatness in what we're watching. Like, one thing that always drives me crazy about sports is, like, with LeBron James, everybody's always looking to nitpick and be a hater and like just drag him down. We're like, no, like, we're watching all-time greatness, and we need to respect it, and we need to acknowledge that what we're seeing is something we're not likely to see again probably for another decade. All right, now about the rest of the field. Let's talk about Chris Gotterup, because Chris Gotterup is playing some of the best golf out of anybody on the planet right now. He finished third at this event after winning the Scottish Open. Is it a possibility that, hey, maybe this guy is just one of the best links players in the world? Possibly. But also at the same time, is he just leveling up? Like, I think there's a potential that he could end up being one of, like, that next crop of golfer that ends up being, some of the best in the world. And I think that there's a legitimate argument to be made right now for taking Chris Gotterup on the Ryder Cup team, given how floundering some of the other, stalwarts of that team have been this year. Like, you can't take Jordan Spieth right now. Patrick Cantlay is a hard sell right now. Tony Finau's kind of a hard sell right now as well. Like, you just have guys that have played in Ryder Cups that are not getting the job done. And right now, Gotterup is. And I think he makes a very compelling case that if he continues to play well through the rest of this regular PGA Tour season and the FedEx Cup playoffs, he has an argument to be on the Ryder Cup team. And I'm super interested to see how that is going to play out. But I think it's a discussion that needs to be had. We're going to talk a little bit more about Chris Gotterup a little bit later. Now, also, I'm talking about Royal Portrush in general. Look, I loved watching Royal Portrush. Like, I'd watched almost every bit of the coverage Thursday and Friday and Saturday. Like, it was a great week for me to have a beach vacation where I could just sit on the beach with my phone and watch an hour of golf, or, could take my son that's 2 months old now in for a nap and just turn golf on the TV. Like, it was a great week to have that, right? And I loved the course. I thought it was beautiful. I thought that it was pretty accurate to what we thought it would play in terms of accuracy based, not distance based, in terms of very much approach based, and just kind of the general vibe of the place was just kind of, I enjoyed it. Like, I think I would be totally cool if the open rota was shortened a little bit. You can get rid of Troon, you can get rid of St. George's. Give me more Portrush, give me more Muirfield, give me more Carnoustie. Like, I would be totally cool with that. I really liked Royal Portrush. It did play a little bit easier than I expected, but it's just the weather ended up being docile. And, like, that's something you're going to have with a links course. Like, we talked about this on the preview show. Like, it's only 7,400 yards because in the wind, it's going to play like 7,700. And when you don't get the wind, there's not really a whole lot of defenses out there because there's not trees and there's not a whole lot of water. Then you end up with what you end up with, and ends up playing a little bit easy, which is fine. Like, I don't have a problem with a tournament playing easy, because I think that there's a lot of score to par snobs out there. Like, I don't need my US Open to play even par. I don't need my Open Championship to be like gale force winds. I just need it to be enjoyable and reward good golf. And at the end of the tournament, the cream rose to the top, right? Like, Scottie Scheffler was very clearly the best golfer all week, and he ended up being rewarded with a victory. All right, now let's talk DFS a little bit. So in terms of DFS, I had a really good core, but a really bad player pool. And what I mean by that is my core of players was Scottie Scheffler, Russell Henley, T10. I also had Jordan L. Smith. Where did he end up? He T45 made the cut at 5,900, so maybe not as good of a play as I thought. And then Akshay Bhatia at T30. That's a pretty solid core to like have for your four from your DraftKings core, make it to the weekend, finish in the top 50, especially when two of them were significant values, right? But the problem was that a lot of the like ancillary chalk pieces that I was avoiding ended up playing well. And what I mean by that is I knew going in that Scottie was going to be popular. I knew going in that Russell Henley was going to be popular. So I was avoiding playing some of the other chalk, and a lot of the other chalk got there. Matt Fitzpatrick, T4. I played a good bit of him, but he was absolutely chalk, came in at T4. I would say that Tommy Fleetwood was a good bit of chalk, and he came T16. Tyrrell Hatton, chalk, T16. Justin Rose, chalk, T16. You also had some value plays, like Harry Hall was the chalk 6K value play, T28. Like Keegan Bradley, chalk value play, T30. So like it ended up being a really good week if you kind of just played a lot of the chalk. And for me, I played a few pieces of the good chalk, but was so paranoid of playing too many chalky guys that a lot of my player pool ended up killing me, and I did not have a lot of 6-for-6 lineups. I had a lot of Jason Day and a lot of Ryan Fox that were just one off the cut line. It was crazy how the cut ended up being exactly 70 players. I don't know if I've ever seen that. I also played a lot of Tom Kim, who ended at +3, and Tom McKibben, who ended at +3. Like, I really feel like I had the right idea heading into the tournament. I had the right read on things. Just the cut being +1 ended up messing me up. And the fact that a lot of the other chalky plays made the cut ended up messing me up. But I do think that at the end of the day, we had a pretty good breakdown and we had a pretty good core. And so even though it was a net negative week from a DFS perspective, I am willing to chalk it up as I had a pretty good breakdown. I had a pretty good feel for the tournament, just ended up on the wrong side of a little bit of variance. Anyway, that does it for the Open. Let's go ahead now and dive into TPC Twin Cities. Okay, so one thing that I've been told before about my golf breakdowns is that I can be too positive about all of the golf courses, right? And I think the reason behind that is because just purely from a straight up perspective, these courses are still much nicer than most of the courses I go out and play for $50 on the weekends. And B, I have to watch this tournament on my TV for 4 days. And so I want to get excited about the golf course. I want to feel a sense of anticipation for the golf course, right? But I got to be honest, this is not one of my favorite golf courses on the PGA Tour. It's just not, right? I think this is one of the more bland and vanilla golf courses and one of the kind of weaker from an architectural perspective golf courses on the PGA Tour schedule. In fact, I really would like to one day do a ranking of all the regular PGA Tour courses. This will be near the bottom. And I'm no golf architecture expert. Like, I very much consider myself much more of an expert at college football and college basketball, which I also cover on this podcast, than I do golf, but I love golf. So I cover this more out of passion, right? But let's do like a real quick golf course architecture crash course and talk about why this one is a bad one, right? So when you talk about golf course architecture coming to America, there was the classical age of golf course design where a lot of courses were built into the, kind of natural topography of rolling hills, natural water hazards, trees being cut down, not trees being planted, and just everything was kind of built straight up from the ground, right? Like, you think about your Oak Hills, your Bethpage Blacks, your Augusta Nationals, Pebble Beach, like just all these courses that are just right into the topography of their land, right? Well, what ended up happening was about the 1980s, the dark ages of golf course design happened. And what caused that was Pete Dye was commissioned to design TPC Sawgrass in Florida as a golf course that was specifically designed to host golf tournaments. And I love TPC Sawgrass. TPC Sawgrass is like the all-time best, like, dark ages of golf course design, because what it did was it was Pete Dye at his finest, and he was able to kind of weave water in and out of the course of all different kinds of bunkering and trees and elevation changes that also created natural hazards and high leverage golf shots, right? What happened was TPC Sawgrass was so highly reviewed that everywhere wanted to take TPC Sawgrass and they wanted to bring it to their region. And so what ended up happening was you ended up having these kind of clones of TPC Sawgrass all around the country. Think TPC River Highlands in the Northeast, PGA West in California. But a lot of lesser skilled golf architects took the worst parts of TPC Sawgrass when they made their golf courses. And this is an example of that. TPC Twin Cities is in Minnesota. It is not a Florida golf course. It is quite flat. It was very artificially man-made. And there are a lot of very artificially made water hazards that is the primary hazard on this course. And while it does serve for a good tournament setting, I believe that water as a hazard is very lazy golf course design, because it just it makes it very binary outcomes. You either hit it in the water or you don't. It's not like, oh, look, he's in the natural area. What's he going to get? How's he going to recover from that? It's, oh, look, he's taking a drop and now he's hitting shot number 4. So I just think that it's kind of lazy architecture, but it does create high leverage shots where you have to step up and hit a shot every single hole on this golf course because water is on almost every single hole. Like literally, I know Minnesota is they're named the land of 1,000 lakes or land of 10,000 lakes. Well, about half of them are on this golf course. Like literally, this is the most water heavy golf course on the PGA Tour. If I did not tell you otherwise, you would assume that it was in the state of Florida and not the state of Minnesota. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the scorecard. This is a par 71. It is 7,400 yards. And like I said, the primary feature of TPC Twin Cities is the abundance of water hazards. You're going to see them on almost every single hole. And also, we've got bent grass agronomy throughout. So this does lend itself to be kind of perceived as another bent grass birdie fest like we see all summer long at TBC River Highlands, at Detroit Golf Club, at TBC Deer Run. It's very much in that same mold. The only difference is this week, in addition to the amount of water, this is a very flat golf course, and it also has quite large greens. So you tend to see a pretty high green and regulation percentage. And like I said, with the course being very artificially man-made in terms of like the elevation changes and the topography, the greens themselves are quite flat. And so what that does is it makes putting a little bit easier, right? Like you can see bad putters putt well here. Of course, good putters can putt well here as well, but the ball rolls true and what you see is what you get. Like it's very easy to read the greens. Like you're going to be able to stand in front of a putt and say, oh, okay, that's going to break this amount left. I know to aim this amount right, and I'm going to be able to putt it. Unfortunately, there's no real stat we have for ability to read greens, but poor green readers are going to show up here and play well because it's going to be really easy to read the greens. And so the slogan of this tournament that the tournament organizers actually use is quote unquote birdies and train wrecks. And that's exactly what you're going to have. Like this is a quite easy layout where water is the main hazard. And if you hit the water, you're going to have a train wreck. And if not, you're going to have plenty of opportunities to roll birdies in. The only other thing I would say that differentiates this between the other bent grass birdie fest is it is a little longer. It's par 71, about 7,400 yards. So you are going to see some middle and long iron approaches. Also a few par fours where it's going to be driver wedge. But the bottom line this week, the name of the game is going to be avoiding the water. And so what we're going to be looking at in terms of our golfers that we're going to be targeting this week is to kind of re-paraphrase Randy Moss's famous quote, straight flushers, homie. Like we want guys who are really good ball strikers because really good ball strikers, guys who are good off the tee and on approach are going to tend to put themselves in the best position to not be in the water on every single shot. They also tend to have a higher level of confidence when they step up and hit driver and iron shots with water in play because they know that they have control of their golf ball and they know that they can avoid the water. And I don't really care if it's distance or accuracy. If you're a good off the tee player, if you're a good approach player, you're going to be able to play well here. Like when you look at the leaderboards of years past, like yes, we had, bombers like Matthew Wolff and Bryson DeChambeau and Tony Finau play well here, but we've also had shorter hitters like JT Poston and Lee Hodges play and Emiliano Grillo play well here as well. So really the only thing that I'm looking for this week and the thing that I'm prioritizing is in fact ball striking because that's how you're going to have to get it done here. This is a good week to target terrible putters because we've seen the likes of Tony Finau and Matt Wolff and Lee Hodges win here, and Jonathan Vegas as well, because they're really good ball strikers that just happen to have really good weeks putting. And so this is going to be a very high variance tournament because not only, could you have your favorite golfer find the water on Thursday and have his round be done, but you could also have a guy just happen to catch fire with the putter that's not normally a good putter. So that does lend it to being a pretty high variance golf tournament. All right, now, in terms of our key stats for this week, oh my, it did not save. I made a slide for this earlier. Where is it? Here we go. Okay, I figured it out. So I just forgot to rename the slide TBC Twin Cities. So what I'm looking for my key stats this week, strokes gained ball striking off the tee and on approach is what that means. I'm also looking at total driving as a stat, which measures distance and accuracy. That'll kind of be a good gauge of can you keep the golf ball out of the water. And then I'm also looking at birdie or better and bogey avoidance because those two things are going to come into play, right? Like birdies and train wrecks. I want guys that can make birdies. I want guys that can avoid train wrecks. In terms of the comp courses, we've got our Florida courses that are water heavy, PGA National and Bay Hill. Bay Hill was also designed by Arnold Palmer like this golf course was. And so I think that's a natural comp. And then also host of the Myrtle Beach Classic, the Dunes Golf and Beach Club. similar water heavy, similar big greens, similar distance as well. I think that that's a very sneaky good comp, especially when you look at the guys who have played well there. And then also we've got our Bent Grass Birdie Fest, Detroit Golf Club, and TPC Deer Run. And then TPC Louisiana, I know it's the home of the partner event, the Zurich Classic, but I do think that that one's a pretty good comp. And then hosted the Olympics last year, Le Golf National in Paris, I also think is a very good comp, which is what that course was asking as well. All right, so that is everything you need to know about the golf course. Let's go ahead now and take a quick breather, and then let's dive down the rabbit hole. All right, now if you've been with us for a while, you know that when I say go down the rabbit hole, I'm not referring to an actual rabbit hole. I'm talking about the rabbit hole, which is a tool from BetSperts Golf that allows you to use all different kinds of filters and conditions in order to really find the specific micro skills that you're going to want to target for a specific golf course, and that allows you to find specific golfers that you might not have been able to find otherwise. And it has been a huge help for me this year. I cannot recommend it enough. I believe it is the best golf data site around. So here's what we're looking at for our rabbit hole stats this week. First, I want to look at just strokes gained ball striking that is off the tee and on approach added together for the calendar year 2025. Who are the best in the field? Rico Hoey, Kevin Yu, Doug Gim, Taylor Pendrith, and Chris Gotterup. When you isolate that to only the last 16 rounds, though, the best in the field, Rico Hoey, Siwoo Kim, Ben Coles, Michael Thorbjornsen, and Kurt Kitayama. Then when you look at the last 2 years on courses where there is a lot of water danger, who are the best ball strikers in the field? Rico Hoey, that name's popped up quite a few times now. Doug Gim, Keith Mitchell, Henrik Norlander, and Joel Damon are the best in that category. And then I want to also look at strokes gained off the tee, but only on courses that are driver heavy off the tee, because this week is going to be a lot of pounding driver on par 4s and par 5s. Best in the field, Rico Hoey, Taylor Pendrith, Stephen Fisk, Kevin Yu, and Jesper Svensson. And then I also mentioned total driving as one of my key stats, best in the field, Cameron Champ, Brandon Valdez. Okay, so let me go ahead and mention Brandon Valdez. He is an amateur. I believe he attends Auburn and plays on the same team with Jackson Coyven. He's a very high upside guy. That's a name to look out for. I do know the sample size on him is very small, though, so take the data with a grain of salt. Rico Hoey is third, followed by Michael Thorbjornsen and Alex Smalley as the top 5. Then I want to look at strokes gained on approach for the calendar year 2025. Who are the best in the field? Henrik Norlander, Tom Hoagie, Lee Hodges, Akshay Bhatia, and Jackson Sewer. Then I also want to look at strokes gained approach, but just long golf courses. Who are the best in the field? Henrik Norlander, Keith Mitchell, Gary Woodland, Tom Hoagie, and Doug Yim. Then I want to look at strokes gained on approach on easy approach courses. And what that means is courses where iron shots, it's easy to gain strokes for. Those are the courses we're looking at. Henrik Norlander, Tony Finau, Doug Gim, Siwoo Kim, and Luke Clanton as your top 5. Then I want to look at putting on bent grass. Over the last 2 years, best in the field, Vince Whaley, Taylor Montgomery, Mackenzie Hughes, Pearson Cootie, and Max Grazerman. Strokes gained putting on easy greens. Best in the field, Taylor Montgomery, Max Grazerman, Christian Bezadenut, Vince Whaley, and Frankie Sappin as your top 5. Then I want to look at our scoring stats, birdie or better, best in the field, Max Grazerman. Oh, this is this calendar year, by the way. Max Grazerman, Akshay Bhatia, Garrick Higo, Wyndham Clark, and Michael Thorbjornsen. Bogey avoidance for the calendar year 2025. Best in the field, Brandon Valdez, that name again, Andrew Putnam, Cam Champ, Danny Willett, and Lee Hodges. And then when you throw all of our comp courses as well as TPC Twin Cities into a blender, who are the best players at the comp courses? Tony Finau, Jonathan Vegas, Chris Kirk, Emiliano Grillo, and Max Grazerman. Now, when you throw all of those stats into a custom model, what you get this week is very interesting. We did not get a top of the board player at the top of my model. Number 1 in my model is Kevin Yu. And I got to say, I like you this week. And I want you to like you this week as well. The downside is that if I like you and you like you and everybody likes you, then you is going to be highly owned in DFS. I hope everybody understood that. So Kevin Yu, I really like this week, but I am worried that he is absolutely going to be chalk in DFS, but I am not sure that it matters. He is coming in really good form. He had a really poor round at the Open on Thursday, almost rallied to make the cut on Friday. I'm not going to penalize him for missing the cut at the Open Championship last week, but you look at his profile and his strokes gained ball striking numbers are just really good and have been really good throughout the entire summer. And he's in such a spot where he's historically a bad putter, but when he does gain with the putter, you get really good finishes, like fourth place at Myrtle Beach. Hey, that was one of my comp courses. Or third at the RBC Canadian Open. This is the exact type of profile that I'm looking for this week of a straight flusher who has the ability to gain strokes with the putter. And when he does gain strokes with the putter, he turns in really good finishes. Kevin Yu, top of my model this week, probably going to be an outright bet for me. Yet to be seen how much I'm going to play him in DFS because I'm very much worried about ownership. Number 2 for me is the Frenchman, Victor Perez. And I got to say, I kind of get it. He is really good at the comp courses that we're looking at. He is also a really good ball striker. He averages in this calendar year gaining half a stroke per round on approach and over half a stroke per round in the ball striking categories in total. He's also a pretty good putter. And he's coming in really good approach form. So I really think this is a good spot for Victor Perez. He was T13 at one of my comp courses in Myrtle Beach earlier in the year, T18 at PGA National, another one of my comp courses earlier in the year. So I really think this is a good spot for Victor Perez. He is definitely a value play in DFS that I am interested in. Probably not going to bet him outright, but definitely interested in the DFS market. So Kurt Kitayama is number 3. And look, anytime you got a course that's prioritizing ball striking, Kurt Kitayama is going to be near the top of the leaderboard. Like, let's be honest, that's what he does. That's the name of his game. Like last time out at the John Deere Classic, he almost won, and he was negative around the green and negative with the putter. He's just so good of a ball striker. And he's been really good as a ball striker pretty much all year long. And so I'm going to be playing Kurt Kitayama in DFS this week with Kevin Yu. I think he might be highly owned also. I've heard a few other content sites this week mention him, but I mean, he just models so well. How can you ignore it, right? Kevin Roy is coming in number 4. He's kind of falling out of form, though. Missed the cut at the ISCO 2 weeks ago. But before that, he had just been on an absolute tear. It was just tearing it up over Bentgrass Birdie Fest summer. He's a value play that I'm going to be willing to go back to, even though the miscut at the ISCO was a little bit disappointing. Taylor Pendrith, number 5, makes a lot of sense. Another straight flusher who's kind of falling out of ball striking form lately, but his long-term ball striking form is good, so maybe he could bounce back. Keith Mitchell is 6. I would kind of put him in the same category as Taylor Pendrith, where he's kind of falling out of form, but his overall profile is what we like. Davis Thompson is 7. This is another guy that is a straight flusher, homie. Like that's what he does. And he's doing that all summer long. Missed the cut at the Open Championship, was quite bad, but I'm willing to forgive him for that. Now that he's back on American soil, I think this is a good spot for Davis Thompson. Alex Smalley, number 8. Siwoo Kim, number 9. Cam Champ, number 10 in my model. Cam Champ, really interesting. So basically, he has not played like a full PGA Tour season, but since he's been on the PGA Tour, he's been really, really good. He's played like the last 4 non-signature, non-major events. T9 at the RBC Canadian Open, T19 at the Rocket, T27 at the John Deere, T14 at the ISCO, gaining strokes across the board pretty much every single time he tees it up. And then also, I believe he missed the cut at the Barracuda, but I also believe he was close to the first round leader and just kind of had a bad round on Friday. And that's a modified scoring event, so kind of hard to really quantify that one. But I like this profile. If there were no name attached to this profile, if you could not see any of the previous events or the fact that he was basically a Corn Ferry Tour player prior to that, he'd be priced much higher. I think this is a really good spot for Cam Champ. He is a former winner at this event also. Interestingly enough, like none of the favorites like modeled out really highly for me. Maybe that's a good sign. Maybe that's a bad sign. Sam Burns was 28th, Maverick Neely 14th, Chris Goddard up 33rd. But like honestly, when it comes to this event, you kind of end up with 2 results. Like the favorites, quote unquote, either play really well or miss the cut. Right? Because this is generally a pretty weak field event. So generally the guys who come here as the favorites are better players than everybody else in the field. But also there's enough volatility at this event that you have a few water balls on Thursday and Friday, and you could be heading for an early plane ticket home out of Minneapolis. So I don't know what to make of them not showing up well in the model, but I do think that those 3 are overall skill level the best in the field. Anyway, If you want to know the final top 10 of the model, because I am going to be tinkering with it all week long, head on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/Mike's Money Picks. On every Wednesday, I post an article with my model top 10, my core plays on DraftKings, my core plays on FanDuel, and a full write-up as to why they're my core plays and why my model is what it is. So if you want to access that, as well as my best ball ranks for NFL and college football, head on over to the Patreon. I'm also in the Fantasy Corner Discord. Link is in the description below. It's 100% free. Just a bunch of dudes talking DFS for a bunch of different sports. If you're looking for people to talk DFS with, sweat out games together, or just get more information, bounce suggestions and ideas off each other, it's a blast. Cannot recommend it enough. And then also, if you want more from me, always follow me on Twitter at Mike's Money Picks. All right, let's go ahead now, take a quick breather, and then let's talk about strategy for DFS betting and one. All right, so from a DFS perspective, actually, let me reorder that. From a betting perspective, I'm not betting the top of the board this week. I think that my outright bets, I've already mentioned I want to place one on Kevin Yu. There is one way further down the board that I am going to be placing. And then there's one in the mid-range that I'm going to be placing as well. I'm not going to be betting one of the favorites this week. I just don't like the idea of betting the guys at the top of this board at short betting odds. I do think that, like I said, that the favorites at this event tend to show up and play well or miss the cut. So if you want to do like a top 20 parlay, like a Burns and McNeely, or like a Gotterup and Grazerman or something like that, I'd have no problem with that. But now let's talk about from a DFS perspective. So the top three guys in the field this week, Burns, McNeely, Gotterup, I think are in their own separate tier from the rest. And the reason why is because all three of those guys are all trying to backdoor their way onto the Ryder Cup team. They're all probably on the outside looking in right now. But you have a win here, and that's a big like showcase, right? Or if you come in top 5, you get yourself a lot of Ryder Cup points. So they're all playing for an ulterior motive instead of just like showing up here to Minnesota to just collect a check. Like, they're here to play well and they're here to win. And I think that motivation has been encouraged to play them. So I'm probably going to be overweight to those guys in the 10K. Because I'm going to be honest, I really like the 8K and the 7K this week. It's the 9K that gives me a lot of pause. So let's go ahead and talk Chris Gotterup. So Chris Gotterup, we mentioned him at the top of the show. The question is this just a Linsanity run, or has he actually leveled up? The bottom line is that his profile in terms of strokes gained is really, really good. And the only thing that he had not been doing well was putting. And this is a course that we already mentioned where poor putters can show up and putt well. So I think that this is a really good spot for him. And if he continues with this elite run of ball striking form that he's been on, there's no reason he can't show up and top 5, top 10, or even win this event. And so I do like Chris Gotterup this week. But I'm going to put Burns and McNeely in their own separate category, as well as Max Grazerman. I'm going to put all three of these guys in the same category. And the reason why is because all three are generally good drivers of the golf ball. All three have good history at this event. Burns with a 7 and 12th, McNeely with a third and a 16th, and Grazerman runner-up last year. All three of them, good history here, right? All three of them are historically really good putters, Burns, McNeely, and Grazerman. And all three have not been putting well lately, to their standard, I should say. They're not putting poorly, but they're not putting to their standard. And so it would not shock me if any one of the three of them, Burns, McNeely, or Grazerman, shows up, brings the same tee to green game that they've been having, which is all three of them been pretty good, brings the same course history that they've been having, which is all three of them pretty good, and puts the lights out. Any one of them could win this tournament by 5 shots by bringing their same usual game and just happening to get hot with the putter. And so that has me very interested in Burns, McNeely, and Grazerman for that specific reason. Now, the rest of the 9K range, I've got serious concerns over Wyndham Clark and Ricky Fowler and Siwoo Kim. Tony Finau has played this event every single year and has never finished outside the top 30. Do you guys know how rare that is? Like, that is like among the elite in course history on the PGA Tour. The fact that this event has been held 6 times and he has 6 top 30s. That's insane. Tony Finau had been really poor at the start of the season. And most of that was because of the fact that he had a lot going on off the course. He's also aging. He also has like 7 kids. He's got like a Phillip Rivers situation going on. So he just not really been good at the start of the season. He's starting to bounce back. He's starting to show signs of life, right? And that T56 at the Open, I don't think it was as bad as that number says. He was very much near the top of the leaderboard after Friday. This is a great Tony Finau course. When you think about what Tony Finau does well, elite ball striker, good long iron player, clearly likes this event. Nobody's going to play him because of his recent form. I think he makes a very, very good pivot play at $9,100. Now, in the 8K range, like I said, I love this range. We already talked about Kevin Yu. We already talked about Kitayama and Davis Thompson. I also really like Jake Knapp. Like, this just feels to me like a Jake Knapp golf course. For whatever reason, Jake Knapp just seems to always up his game at courses where water is really heavy. I guess it's just because, like, he hits the ball really far and pretty straight, and he just knows, oh, look, I can just aim 50 yards left and the ball ain't going to end up in the water. Boom. Like, I don't know, for whatever reason, he just plays really well at water heavy courses. At this event, he has not played it, but I really think this is a good setup for him at $8,900. So also, we're going to draw comparisons because these two guys are coming up at the same exact time. We're going to draw comparisons to Michael Thorbjornsen and Luke Clanton for their entire career. I think this is a Clanton course. Clanton is more of an accurate driver of the golf ball compared to Thorbjornsen. Clanton is also much more of a middle to long iron player than Thorbjornsen is. And so I really think that this is a good spot for Luke Clanton over Thorbjornsen, even though, well, both of them missed the cut here last year. Clanton's going to be my guy this week, not Thor. And I think Thor is going to be much highly owned. I also think Grillo is going to be very highly owned. And I'm good missing out on that because, like I said, I already like Kevin Yu, who's going to be chalk at 8,000. I also think that this is a really good Akshay Bhatia course. When you think about straight flushers, he's a straight flusher. He's also a guy that could potentially backdoor his way onto a Ryder Cup team if he gets a win or two before the end of the season. But when you look at what he's doing recently, it's the approach form. Like, Akshay of last year was an elite approach player, could not putt to save his life. Akshay of the start of the year really turned the short game around, could not hit an iron. Now the irons are back, and I'm waiting for the putter to come back as well. I think it can very well do so this week. I think this is a really good Akshay week. I'm going to be on Akshay Bhatia. Now, in the 7K range, there's a lot of names here that I like. Like, there's just so many, right? We've already talked about Cam Champ. Rico Hoey showed up on all the ball striking stats, but Lord knows he doesn't know how to putt. Lee Hodges, former winner here, great approach form. Patrick Fishburne coming in with really good form. Also, I anticipate he's going to be popular. Jonathan Vegas, the defending champ. Sam Stevens, always good at long golf courses. But I think one of my favorites is going to be Jacob Bridgman. So Jacob Bridgman is generally a pretty good iron player who can really spike with the putter. And if all of it comes together, he has winning upside. Right? It's what we saw earlier in the year where he was third at Valspar and T2 at Cognizant, right? When it all comes together, he has the upside to win because of what he can do with his irons and his putting. So I think this is a very high upside play in DFS to be only $7,500. I also really like Doug Gim. This is an outright bet I'm making this week, folks, is Doug Gim. So if you're not aware, I kind of have a Doug Gim problem because Doug Gim, when he was at the University of Texas, Hook'em, he was actually a better college golfer than Scotty Scheffler, which seems crazy in hindsight. But when they got to the pros, they both were kind of a similar profile where they're both really good ball strikers and neither of them could putt. And the difference is Scheffler decided to up his ball striking game and then up his putting. And Doug Gim hasn't upped either of them. But what Doug Gim is doing with his approach play and with his off the tee play has been insane this season. He's been one of the best ball strikers in the field. He just needs to not lose 5 strokes putting. Like, if he can just be a neutral putter, he can win this event. And oh, by the way, he's played well at this event. He's played it almost every single time that it's been hosted. He has 4 top 30 finishes and a missed cut. That's pretty good. I think this is a really good spot for Doug Gim. I am in on the Gim Reaper here this week. Now, in the low 7K range, we've already mentioned my affinity for Victor Perez. I anticipate that Austin Eckroat and Andrew Putnam will be chalk. And so if you're really thinking in DFS, hey, I need to lower ownership, those would be 2 guys that I wouldn't go with, but I do think they're both particularly good course fits. I think they're solid top 20 bets. If you're looking for a winning upside, may I interest you in Cam Davis and Gary Woodland, neither of whom is coming in very good form, but both of whom hit the absolute crap out of the golf ball. Both of whom have good history at the course. Both of them have upside to win a golf tournament even when they have no form. I think that those are two really low-owned Galaxy Brain GPP DFS plays, Gary Woodland and Cam Davis. At the bottom of the 7K range, we've got two guys that I've played a ton all season long that I really like, Hayden Springer and Ryo Hisatsune, and I'm not hopping off now, especially considering I expect them to be highly owned, and I do think that they're particularly good course fits for both of them. The 6K range is really bad on DraftKings this week. Not a whole lot of guys I'm interested in. I do think this could be a good Garrick Higo course or a good Stephen Fisk course. They kind of fit the description for what we're generally looking for, as well as Joseph Bramlett. David Skins is coming in with really good form. He played the alternate events really, really well while the PGA Tour was over in his home country, ironically. He's a guy that can just randomly spike. And if this week's a week he randomly spikes, then he could do well. Ben Coles withdrew from the Barracuda Championship. I don't know why, but he has the exact type of profile that we're looking for at this golf course. I really do like him if I could get more information on that injury or the reason why he withdrew. Thomas Rosenmuller is a guy that I've seen a few people hype up on Twitter. My favorite play in the 6K range, though, is Carson Young. He's $6,600 on DraftKings. This guy is a ball striker. He's a straight flusher. Come in off of the T5 at the John Deere, missed the cut at the ISCO. I don't care. T13 at the Myrtle Beach, which is one of my comp courses. I think this is a really good spot for him and what he does. He's going to be a guy that I'm going to be playing this week. I also mentioned this guy earlier, but if you're looking for a really super dart throw, Brandon Valdez, $6,200 coming out of Auburn. I think he's pretty talented and he could be pretty good. Honestly, this is a week where we know where the chalk's going to go and nobody's going to play 6K golfers in DFS. So what you could potentially do is play the chalky guys. And if the chalk hits and your 6K play like a Brandon Valdez or a Carson Young hits, then you're going to be having a really good lineup because you're probably going to have a different combination of players, even if they're all chalky than other people because other people aren't going into the 6K range. However, given the volatility of this event, it's also generally probably a pretty good idea to pick and choose your chalk because you could have major leverage if one of the chalk plays ends up missing the cut. Just something to think about. All right, let's talk about one and done here before we end the show. So my preliminary pick was Sung J M back at the start of the season, but Sung J M forgot how to hit an iron. So I'm not really interested in picking Sung J M. The overall strategy for one and done this week, though, is this. We have 4 events left on the one and done schedule. The 2 FedEx Cup playoff events are big dollar events, right? You probably need to have in mind who you're going to use at both of those courses. And as long as you're not going to use them at those 2, there's no reason not to use them here because here's the bottom line. There's people that are giving advice for one and done this week saying, oh, if you're a chaser, you got to pick somebody totally random and, you got to gain ground by playing somebody else no one else is. Nah, not really, because you just got to find the winner. The only way you're going to make up any difference in one and done this week is if you find the person who wins. It doesn't matter if you share them or not. You got to find the winner because getting of 1.5 million for a winner is going to do a lot more for you than getting 75,000 for a super sleeper that comes in 9th place, right? So you got to find the winner. So this week, who are we looking at that could potentially win? Well, obviously, you're going to play the players you have left, right? I have used Sam Burns. I have used Maverick McNeely. Nobody in my one and done has used Chris Gotterup. I think he's going to be the chalky selection, right? Because everybody still has him available. I think Max Grazerman could be pretty chalky as well. But I'm not really very interested in using any of these guys in the FedEx Cup playoffs, so I'm just going to use whichever one I think is going to win. And so here on the show, knowing that I've got the Wyndham next week, I think Grazerman's going to play the Wyndham. He did last year. He was runner up there last year. So if Grazerman plays the Wyndham, I think that I don't know. I've got other guys for the Wyndham. I think I actually say Ben Griffin for the Wyndham. So yeah, we're gonna pick Grazerman here and just roll with it and hope that he ends up playing really well. But obviously, if you've got Sam Burns left and you're not using him for the playoff, that would be the easy decision would be to play Sam Burns, right? All right, that is gonna do it here for this episode, though, y'all. So like we said, 30 minutes or less. And I think we stuck that time limit after the open recap. Told you guys everything you need to know about the 3M Open in terms of the course itself, terms of the data, the stats, and hopefully gave you guys plenty of suggestions and ideas to pick some winners for DFS betting and one and done. As a reminder, if this video gave you any help, please hit the like button. It really helps me out a ton when you guys do that. If you're listening on audio, you can rate and review. It helps me out so much when you guys do that. I cannot stress enough. You guys can never know how much that helps me. So I really do appreciate it. And if you're not, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We have crossed the 1,000 mark. So the next goal is 1,500, and we've got a long way to go. So the only way that can happen is if you guys hit that subscribe button. Help me out. It helps me out a ton. But yeah, that's going to do it for the show. And we're going to be back later on in the week, probably doing some college football best ball drafts. We're only a matter of time away from our college football season preview, as well as the DFS podcast for those, and you'll know when those drop if you are subscribed. We will definitely be back next week to talk about the Wyndham Championship. Y'all, the Wyndham is my golf tournament. It is literally hosted 20 minutes from my front door. I've never played Sedgefield, but I've driven through Sedgefield. I know somebody who has played Sedgefield quite a bit, and I've been to the tournament 3 times. I've got the drop on the Wyndham, y'all. So make sure you come back with us next week for the Wyndham Championship. But until then, best of luck to you guys with your DFS plays, betting cards, and one and dones at the 3M Open. Hopefully, we're able to help you guys pick out some winners. Thank you guys for watching and listening to this point, and I will see you guys next time.